Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hot Pole Podcast, and I have a special guest this week, Kristian Kohle. Hi!
Guten
Hello.
Abend. How are you?
I'm good, very good. I'm going to check the bitrate of the stream because it's giving me a big red light, but it seems to be happy. So yes, I'm good, and I'm just about to open a beer, which of course you got to do. I had to run to the shop because I had no beer.
What are you drinking? Heineken.
Yeah, so they didn't have anything better in the shop at short notice, so it'll do. Cheers.
I didn't even know they were selling foreign beers in Britain. Thought that was
A lot of the foreign beers in Britain, to be fair, are actually brewed here, so... Ugh.
okay. No, I have a Bavarian beer.
You are very lucky to be living close to where you can just get real Bavarian beer. It's very nice.
It is actually my favorite beer. I don't live in Bavaria, but that sweet and less hoppy Bavarian beer is my favorite. Better than anything I've tasted elsewhere in the world. So I don't like that much about Bavaria, but that part is cool.
That and Engel.
And then, yeah, and the guitar amps, right? It's Engel and it's Dietzel as well.
Yeah, Diesel there, right? Okay.
Also Bavarian. And Thomann is Bavarian.
Ah, of course.
Awesome. Or Franconian, as some might say. Different.
Ooh, yes, indeed. But yes, for anyone who's tuning in who is not aware who Kristian Kohle is, where have you been? But also, just to give you the quick lowdown, Kristian is a metal producer who I've been listening to stuff. It turns out that he's been producing for many, many years. Stuff like Aborted and Dimitri and a lot of other massive bands that you might know. Dimitri, there's all sorts of huge stuff that you've worked on. And yes, you have your own studio in the hills that nobody would know about unless they went in, right? I mean, my place is the same. Nobody knows it's there until you walk in and you go, oh.
The cool thing about this place is actually that I'm like at the edge of so-called Odenwald, which is like the forests and mountains, and that is like I'm at the edge of nowhere, so to say, at the beginning of the end of the world, which means I live very close to a lot of castles and very close to, I can walk to the forest, but I'm still very close to the highway and close to quite a lot of bigger German cities and close to Frankfurt Airport. So it's a great combination living here, I think. South of Frankfurt.
Right next to where you can have all the black metal bands come and record and then go and do the photo shoot and the videos straight away.
There is actually the official Burg Frankenstein, the Castle Frankenstein, is in my village. It's like 3 kilometers. I can see it from here.
Wow.
And this is where Mary Shelley actually went to, like before she wrote the book.
Huh.
And nobody knows, but she might have at least taken the name from this castle. And that's a cool place. But a lot of tourists go there as well. And there's big Halloween fest in what is that, October, November, whenever Halloween is. And and all the bands go there to take pictures. But
awesome.
Yeah, you should come visit me next time we meet at Gear Street.
Yeah.
Take a trip here. It's not far.
Absolutely. Bring some corpse paint, take some photos.
Yeah.
Put my best face on.
Yeah, just.
In fact, if we have a really long cable, we can go straight from a guitar into the studio and then blast the amp and then put the microphone next to me so it sounds like a black metal record. Just
you can do all that. It was actually another cool story is that I think in 1984, when I was 6 years old, Motley Crue actually had the official European presentation of their Girls album. I think it was 84. I might be wrong, but on Burg Frankenstein, on that castle.
Nice.
And they, with all the press and all people, and they showed the album to the European press there, and I was so close, but I was only 6 years old. But that's a cool story. I know that Tommy Lee was there, and so each time I'm jogging to that castle, I feel good.
Well, that leads me on to a question I was going to ask, which is, have you moved there because it's a cool location, or is it just where you're from? Or
no, I actually still I actually still live the same place where I was born, and I just happened to stay there. I mean, when I was 15, I didn't really want to stay here, and now I appreciate, that I had the chance to stay here
Hmm.
and build the studio. So no, I didn't choose the place. The place chose me.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like you kind of done well with location, though. If it's beautiful, I'm guessing it's relatively affordable because it's in the middle of nowhere.
No, it's actually not that affordable here, unfortunately, because we're like close to Frankfurt, and
Hmm.
but in a very quiet and peaceful place. So all
Ah,
people who work in Frankfurt but don't want to raise their kids there
right.
kind of move here or move somewhere around. But it's beautiful, and like I said, it's a good combination of I think 50 kilometers distance. You have at least 5, 6 bigger German cities
Hmm.
you can go to, and so you're not really in the middle of nowhere, just at the edge of nowhere. And yeah,
That's still a pretty metal title, The Edge of Nowhere.
and in Castle Frankenstein, and um, yeah, I am very heavy metal. Can you see that?
Just a little. So,
Mm.
if anyone's got any questions for Kristian, think about them now. Don't get them in the chat just yet, but have a think, because we're going to go through this week's music, tech, and guitar news, as is what we do. And then we are going to take your questions and answer them as much as we can. Let's rock with the news! So, the headline news this week is there's a new company called Soundwide. Have you heard of these guys?
Me?
Yeah?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was a big story, right? I mean, it's
Yeah. Well, that's
Native
that.
Instruments, Brainworks, and Isotope going
Yeah.
together.
And
Wow,
the whole plugin alliance, which I think is Brainworks anyway, but that I
exactly.
I think Brainworks own plugin alliance. I can't remember whether it's just a really tight knit. I don't know how
I
that
think it
works.
started. It started with Brainworks, and it's that German guy Dirk Ulrich, I think,
Mm,
who runs both.
that's right.
Interesting. It's actually two German companies. Native Instruments is German too.
Yes.
Isotope is American, from what I know.
Yeah.
But I think it's a smart move because I mean they're obviously all in the plugin world, but they're really addressing different clients.
Yeah.
Because Native Instrument is mainly about music instruments, from pianos to synthesizers.
Yep.
Then there's Plugin Alliance, which for me is basically mixing and mastering tools, like kind of like universal audio,
Yeah. That's how I see it.
and a lot of emulating analog gear.
Yeah.
And then you have Isotope, which is, I think, a lot more technical, like with
Yeah. The kind of
RX
super clean, super modern.
right. So
Yeah.
so what I'm saying, and then there are people like me who are potential customers for all three,
Yeah.
and so if they join forces, that I don't know, but it sounds smart because Plugin Alliance, they don't have any tool like RX9, any
Yeah.
repair tool like that, and Native Instruments don't have that. But Isotope, they don't have any pianos, and
Yeah.
so it's a if they can join forces and do great bundles, or I guess they will come up with some kind of subscription program sooner or later where you can get all that stuff.
It won't be long before that happens, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. And something that's worth noting from this, I don't know if it's in this article, but there is a giveaway at the moment, free plugins. So to celebrate this, Plugin Alliance are giving away their Shadow Hills mastering compressor, the Black Box HD G2, which sits on my master bus for almost every one of my mixes. It's really good, kind of tube, slight saturator that's not crazy. There's others in this plugin bundle that's supposed to be $600, and you can just have them. So it's worth saying to our viewers, there is on the Plugin Alliance homepage right now a thing that tells you how to do that, how to go and get it for free. So definitely go and get it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to the guys from Isotope a few weeks ago, and I've known for a long time that them and Native Instruments were combining because they've been making big plans about it. And I wonder if the floods that the guys at Brainworks and Plugin Alliance had have kind of been a part of this, that it's made them realize maybe we should do something a little bit kind of bigger and be part of a bigger company, because if you're a big company with 3 headquarters and 1 headquarters is damaged, you've usually, yeah.
Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, last year the flood. Yeah,
Yeah, they were in
I don't
real
know.
trouble.
I just think it makes sense because they all make plugins, but they all go into different directions, and that will just combine three not audiences, how do you call that? Like client lists or something,
Yeah.
so they can address more people,
Yes.
and or even join forces when it comes to programming stuff, because they all do pretty badass stuff, kick-ass stuff. I mean, I have plugins from all three companies, and I
Mm.
couldn't live without some of the isotope stuff like RX and Ozone. I use a lot of the Native Instruments strings and pianos, and I don't have that much plugin alliance stuff. But I do own quite a lot of Universal Audio plugins that were also programmed by. That's Brainworks, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the same company, I think.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I'm very much like you that I have stuff from all three, and I use it all. I have the mix and master bundle that I pay for every month from Plugin Alliance, and I don't use every plugin in there, but there's some of them that are just really I can't live without now. They're just
So they
so
already
good.
have a subscription model, right?
Yes.
That's fun. Okay.
Yes, they've got like either a $15 or $25 a month bundles with different things in. One's got everything, and one's just mixing and mastering.
And that's what everybody's doing now, right? Like
Yep.
Universal Audio just announced the same thing last week.
Mm.
Uh,
And Native Instruments, I don't think have, but that's an interesting one for them because some of their like libraries are so big. That is it? Yeah, if someone's paying $10 a month to download 200 gigabytes of stuff, could be tricky.
Could be tricky. That's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's wait and see. But
Yeah.
that was interesting, and it surprised me. I was also in touch with Isotope, and I know at least two people there, but I wasn't informed. So
No,
it
me neither. I think
was
they've been keeping this a real secret. But there you go. So hopefully that'll be something very interesting and not underhanded. So, moving on, next article. This is probably going to be a quick one, but Harley Benton have just released new jazz basses that look really kind of cool and modern and almost like a pedula kind of design.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow, that looks
And
cool.
yeah, I've never been a fan of the precision bass and pickups and everything, but the jazz
Yeah.
bass, I like. My number one is a jazz bass, and I have loads of basses. That's my thing. I'm a bass player as well as mix engineer, but my go-to is jazz basses. They play well. They're easy. They sound good. These
Exactly.
roasted maple jazz bass, €220.
I have to say,
Crazy.
I've never played any of those crazy cheap Harley Benton guitars or basses.
Mm.
Few times, like online, I was like, "Oh my god, that's only $180 or something."
Mm.
It's tempting, and but I gotta say, they look special. Have
Mm.
you ever played the Harley Benton stuff?
I've played a couple, and I think they have the same issues as anything that's in that price range, where it's like the little details aren't there. So if you were going to use it for 3 hours a day on every show, you probably wouldn't be very happy. But if it's the kind of thing where you pick it up and play it a little bit, maybe you've got one in an alternate tuning or something,
Yeah,
or
but
so
I
you play it for
also
one show, one song even.
highly recommend jazz basses in general. The
Mm.
instant dangle, 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 heavy
Yes,
metal bass tone.
bright and angry.
Yeah.
Love him. But yeah, this is really interesting to me with the whole baked maple neck thing, which should stop with tuning problems. And I
Uh-huh.
mean, even if it's great, but maybe the pickups are terrible, you can get some decent Seymour Duncan pickups for €100.
And swap them, yeah.
Yep. And then you've spent the money on the bit you want. And I mean, if I was learning now, the first time I got a 5-string, it was a Jackson. That was in 2000, I think. It was really bad. But I didn't know how bad it was when I got it, and I must have paid £500 or £600 euros for it because at the time 5-strings were quite rare. There was nothing in this price range, and just being able to do that now for €200, you decide whether you like it or not. You've not spent 2,000.
No. And now that we're both very old people, I love telling old war stories. So my first guitar actually had a plastic fretboard.
Oh
So
wow, like
so
phenol kind of thing.
it wasn't even sucking up the sweat. So the strings were always rusty.
Huh.
But that was what you got, like what you could rent in the store, I think, or get cheap in the store when you started playing guitar in the early '90s. So we've gone a long way from like cheap gear, affordable gear to affordable gear of today. You know, it's like
Yeah.
day and night. And I mean, kids of today, you know, you should be. I sound like my own grandma, I know, but you should be extremely happy not only about getting whatever 500 plugins a month for $20, but also about getting instruments like this. So there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Yourself.
I've just brought home today, just for an experiment, I've got one of the Behringer versions of a Sans amp.
Mhm.
30 euros. Sounds great. I mean,
Preamp.
it's gonna break if you throw it at somebody, but
Yeah. I mean, the only downside of this is like when people ask me if I could do a video about that cheap Behringer microphone drum case or something, you know, the whatever
yeah,
nine microphones for $70 or something like that, like incredible. And I'm pretty sure I can get a decent drum recording with those microphones. But I don't want to know how many kids in the Far East had to die for my those
yeah,
microphones. You know, they're like that's the downside of this. You know, you don't want to know how those devices are being made. You know,
yeah. It is a bit. Yeah, how are
and
they doing this?
it's not in Bavaria.
No. So yeah, let's move on from that. But so something that is made in the country of origin, Zvex Effects have just made their new Fuzz Factory version. That's the Ukraine flag. I mean, it's a bit of a weird headline because it says sells out in record time. They made 10. Of course, they sold out in record time. They made 10 of them. They take 10 phone calls in a minute. They're sold. I mean, I do like the Zvex Fuzz Factory. It's a bit of a weird pedal. It's one of those that kind of, it makes a couple of specific sounds and everything else sounds terrible.
Okay.
It's the Muse kind of fuzz, you know, where it's just kind of zipping and kind of craziness. So you're not going to use it on your rhythm tracks on a metal kind of thing.
Got it.
But if you want like a crazy lead, or if you want that Muse kind of thick tone, you can get that. And also, yeah, they obviously now do them in the
Ukrainian colors.
yes, to support Ukraine in a way that I guess they can.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, good on them. You can buy one, and no, you can't, because they sold out in record time. Although if they make another run, that would be nice. Oh, apparently they made them with Ukrainian germanium resistors.
Ooh.
Nice touch. That'd be really fizzy fuzzy. So, moving on to something you might know these guys, KMA Machines. They've made their Guardian of the Worm and pedals like that. This really interests me, especially as a bass player. This is the Queequeg 2. It's an octaver, but it's like a dirty octaver, like the Bosso C2 kind of thing. But it's got a double octave that tracks really well, and it's got one knob, mix, which I think is great for octaves.
I love the look of their pedals. Whoever makes the designs, very, very nice. Really like it. I have never played any of them. They also make that's the Wurm, I think, the
Yes.
HM2 thing, right?
That's right.
Never played them, but they look amazing. I think they are from Berlin.
I edited Glenn's video for the Worm video, and it was really impressive sounding, and especially the way they designed it. You could sidechain a different distortion into it, so you could combine like an amp distortion with the HM2 distortion and blend that back into the effects loop.
So they've done that? Okay.
Yeah, it was very clever.
I gotta look into that, because that original idea has been invented here with this pedal.
Ah, yes, the Grindstein.
Yeah, right. So this was like this is also like a 2-channel thing, HM2, and then there's another distortion, but you can also bypass the other distortion and you can just use the preamp of your tube amp or another pedal or something. So
I do.
That was my idea. So now I don't like KMA anymore.
Yeah, check that out. Was it the Worm, or am I confusing them? I might be confusing it with the. Because I'm trying to think now. I might be confusing it with the Grindstein actually, because I edited that video as well.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That might just be me being an idiot.
Can we cut that? No, we're live. We can't cut it out. No, I love them again. They're great.
Sorry. No, that's just me being stupid.
Okay.
How many beers have I had? Half of one? It's been a long day.
I already had one, but the first one was a light beer.
Ah.
So it was only 2, but the next one will be a real one, and then I'm drunk.
There was someone in the comments asking if you've done a beer review already.
A beer what?
Review,
no. But this is the Tegernseer. I think everybody in Germany who knows anything about Bavarian beer knows Tegernseer. And this is the light version of it, which only has 2.8%. And it's incredibly good for being that light. And but I have already prepared another one, which is a Kloster Hell, also Bavarian, from Fürth. I've never had before, so that's the next one.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm fast.
So yeah, if you want one of these Octavas, go and get it. The thing that attracted me to it is it tracks really quickly and really well. Which, of course, if you've got an Octava that doesn't track very well, what's the point?
Right.
The other one that I was interested in recently is my good friend John Brown has got the what's it called? Grayskull pedal, and that one's kind of it's a fuzz and an octave, but the octave tracks so well and you can use it separately that he's using it on the new tour, on the new Monuments tour, instead of any software octaves, because it just is mean.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's using that. Yeah,
that fuzz octave thing. The first time I heard it was when I played with the band Him.
Oh
and,
yeah.
That like I once played a support tour for them like 20 years ago or something, and that guy I always loved his guitar tone, and he was running like a double rig, and he was playing Laney amps, like a double rig, like one normal distorted rig, and then a octave fuzz rig, and he could blend them and turn them on and off, and kind of like a boost or something, and that was very impressive. I still got to try the same thing. I think you have one of those Laney amps, right? Those VH100 or something.
Yep, right behind me, right there. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I need one of those. I want to try it. I want to
I bought that because John Brown's got one, and I played it, and I was like, I have to have one of these because it's it's Marshall but bigger. But not.
And they're very affordable, right?
So. Yeah, I mean they're rare in England. I had to keep looking. I think I spent 3 months searching. I paid £350 for it, so not super expensive. Most of the ones that you find are the GH100s, which are like single channel version.
And but it's the same. I think it's the same drive channel, right?
I don't know. It's the same series, but I think the GH just didn't have some of the extra little switches and features.
Okay.
But whatever it is, they're the same family. But yeah, it sounds really good. It's kind of tight like a Marshall, but with more rah. But not like modern Marshall. So yeah, there you go. Talking of takes on the modern Marshall, our next article, Victory have just updated the V4 series with these amp pedals. These are really interesting. They've got kind of a solid state output, but it's kind of apparently sounds like a valve-ish kind of thing. They've already done the preamp versions of these, which are designed to go into the back of a valve amp power section. But now they've done these where you can do that, but you can also just take this on tour and just plug this straight into a cab. And then that makes it nice and simple. So now they've done this previously with the Kraken, but now they've done it with the Jack, Copper, Sheriff, and the Duchess. So they're all 2-channel. It looks like these are slightly different from the preamp ones, where you can't just defeat the amp. This is designed to be the end of the chain. This is, you've got low gain, high gain. That's it. And actually, I tried the Jack, the real Jack, the big 100-watt super Jack recently. And me and Brown played it, and we were expecting it to be kind of pedestrian, Marshall with a bit more drive. And we played it, and we were like, whoa, hang on. No, this is special. Because it had almost a Soldano kind of thing with that thick, full forward clarity, and we're looking at each other. This thing had 5 controls on the front. no switches for depth or presence or anything. It just EQ, gain, volume. And we're looking at each other going, what is happening? So,
Wow.
yeah, surprisingly good. So if they've got that with the pedaled version, then...
I've never played any of the Victory amps
Mm.
ever, and for some reason nobody has ever brought one here, because usually if amps get popular, it only takes whatever a few months until it shows up here in the studio and shows me that amp.
Right.
Well, but for some reason, me and Victory haven't met yet.
Huh.
It's still on the list.
Yeah, they're very popular in UK, but they are a UK company, of course. So maybe that's it. That's kind of like you'll probably be tripping over angles where you are, but not so much with some of the other brands, because locality, like I struggle to find Mesas in the UK. They're super rare. But if
that's always been the case, Mesa.
Yeah.
I think Mesa has always been twice as expensive, at least Germany, but I guess it's the same in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's what has made them even more precious to us Europeans.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, Engel, like when I was younger, like everybody was playing Engel fireballs and powerballs. You could see that in every rehearsal space. So boring. And I was surprised, by all the Americans regarding Engel as, custom boutique, holy grail of whatever, So it sometimes depends on how much you've paid for it.
Yeah, there is some of that, I'm sure. Like, it's the same in the UK. The Engels were kind of rare, but Marshalls were everywhere. Every rehearsal room had 5 spare Marshalls. Like, right now behind me, I've got a Marshall right there. I mean, I've got my Mesa Road King as well, which is my favorite. I saw your video on the Road King versus Rev G, and that was really helpful for me, actually, because there is a much darker sounding amp, but I realized from that if I just put the treble on, like, 11... I can actually get good results. But
it's interesting, yeah. And also, like each single amp, I think there's, depending on how much a company wants to spend on parts and on pots, so there's also a tolerance of sometimes like 20%, just for the parts. So you can't just buy 2 amps and then use the same settings and expect them to sound the same.
It's crazy how different they can be. I saw the rig rundown with Angus from AC/DC, and I think he takes like 10 Marshall heads on tour, and it's like, aren't they all the same? He's like, yes, but they all sound different.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this Marshall behind me, that is kind of that's that's my favorite. That is the JCM 800, 100 watt, which is that's the peak Marshall right there. I found it on Facebook Marketplace that some old keyboard player was going to throw it away because it wasn't very good. It had been in his shed for 25 years and had been playing piano through it. I'm like,
oh wow,
really? But that's the thing, in England, they're just so common.
I still need an 800, but I was too lazy to go searching.
Right.
I thought about just getting the Kerry King version, because I think that one was pretty good.
Yeah, that's different. That's not really a real 800, but it is a great amp. It's a monster.
Yeah, that one was good, and it has an extra gain stage or something. But whatever. Yeah. Move on with the new gear.
So yeah, Victory stuff. You can go and buy them if you want them right now. Moving on. This is the craziest looking plugin that I've seen in a while. This is the Aberrant DSP Digitalis. What the hell? This looks to me exactly like an early 90s Macintosh. And I had an early 90s Macintosh, and it was terrible then. And I think the idea of this plugin is making things sound bad. Like, it's a bit crusher and a destroyer and a kind of make it sound like it's from the 80s kind of machine. And it's definitely the weirdest looking plugin that I've seen. I was very creative, I think, to go back and do this.
I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. And it says hello.
Yeah. So that'll be kind of, that'll change, I'm sure, as you destroy it.
As you might say, fuck you at some point, yeah.
Yeah. But I do like the way that it's got subtle things, like there's a little mix control at the top right corner of every one of these little sections. So there's detail here. There's a lot of detail. So this will be a really good plugin for if you want that little moment in the song where it kind of breaks down and goes all kind of before it goes crazy.
Effects, multiple destruction.
Yeah.
Plugin.
I do like stuff like this because I like kind of electronic elements in production, not like kind of, you know, like rap core or anything like that, but I'm a big fan of like mid-90s industrial stuff.
Mm.
And just doing that kind of thing every now and again and just mangling something up, I still think is really cool.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mangling shit is wonderful.
It's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's now available and is $20. I think I'm just going to buy that. Okay, so I'll do that after the stream, not right now. I'm not going to make you all wait.
Let me know how it sounds.
I will. So, moving on. Oberheim. That in the middle is Tom Oberheim, creator of some of my favourite synths ever made. I'm a big fan of bands like Rush with kind of that subdivisions kind of sound, that or Jump by Van Halen. That's Oberheim. And it looks like they're getting back into making synths. So they've done a promo video. They've not actually said what's coming out yet, so we'll definitely have to keep our ears to the ground. But it looks like there's been talk of the Eurorack SEM, which is like a single voice version of these big scary synths, which when they were made were like £6,000 euros in the mid-80s. Yeah. So like a small house now.
Well, that's funny because I was recently just thinking about both Oberheim and Kurzweil.
Oh yeah,
like two companies who just disappeared, and I thought like I gotta Google that. Are they still around, or do they? Now you gave me the answer. At least one of them.
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil's still going. I don't know if he's still doing a big thing, but I remember, late 2000s, Kurzweil, they just kind of disappeared. Yeah. I think they just didn't really keep up with some of the other synth guys, because John Rudess from Dream Theater, he was a Kurzweil. He was the face of Kurzweil for a long time.
Yeah, right.
And because they made the most realistic piano sounds that you could get.
They had this big flagship. And I thought about what was it called? But that was also like really, really expensive stuff. Yeah. And they had a good, how do you call it? A good like piano like.
Yeah. Was it the K2600? Is that the one?
I think that's the one. Yeah, right. And they just disappeared. Like when synthesizers went software, that's when they slowly disappeared.
Yeah, we'll have to have a look and see what's happening with those because it's a real shame, but. Yeah, hopefully they're going to make a comeback, but we'll see. So, moving on, Fluff made a video that's kind of made the news that people are now asking the question, Digitech and DoD, what is going on? Everybody knows Digitech from the Whammy and the Drop. And the Whammy, of course, has been on sale since at least the early 90s, because Tom Morello was a big user of those early 90s. And... yeah, it seems like you just can't buy one from their website anymore. Is it the Harman Group owns Digitech? Maybe, and they seem to have been making less and less and less Digitech stuff. And it seems like from a couple of the retailers that I've asked, they can't get hold of it either, and they don't seem to know what's going on, or at least they're not at liberty to say. But it seems like either Digitech is being kind of quietly trashed, or maybe they're going to be sold off as a name to another company or something. Oh, yeah, so it turns out Harman Audio is part of Samsung. So they've got access to as much tech as they could possibly need. I mean, the funny thing for me about the Whammy pedal was that the best ones are the old ones, where the technology was really bad. And it made it sound cool. Like the pitch shifting in the old Whammies, it was terrible. But bands used that. Like Radiohead did songs like My Iron Lung, which had this kind of chord thing that was with a whammy up an octave, and it tracked it so badly it sounded like a broken kind of robot.
And what's old for you? Like which ones? I have a Whammy 3 and a 4.
Yeah, and anything before the 5, I think.
Okay.
Because, the Whammy 1 is kind of what I had in mind, but I think the Whammy 5 is when they really changed it to have the clever detune stuff, change the chips and stuff.
There's nothing clever about my Whammies, but they sound great.
Cool.
The only problem is like there's always some shift. You really have to press it hard to track like exactly the octave. So it's always going to move a little bit and going to be off pitch.
Right.
But, yeah.
I wonder if that's just a calibrating thing, because I had, when I started, I had one of the Digitech multi-effects. It was bad, But one of the issues that I had with it was that it wouldn't track properly, and I found that I took it apart because I didn't care anymore. And it turned out that there were kind of sensors that were just not great, and I managed to fix them and tweak them. And so, yeah.
I'll send you my pedals. No, you can take them.
I always wanted to get into things like amp modding, but I was always scared of that because that's like real high voltage killer stuff. But if I've got an old multi-effects, I don't care. I'll open it, get the multimeter out, and go beep, and it's broke. Fine. Yeah. That's how you fix it, with more fire.
Yeah, right.
So, from a pedal you can't get to a pedal you can very definitely get. The Tube Screamer, everybody's got a Tube Screamer. In fact, like over here I've got a variant on a Tube Screamer. I've got a EQ Plumes. You know, everybody's got something around that's Tube Screamery. I'm sure you wouldn't have to look very hard to find one.
I'm too lazy to get up now, but yeah, I've got enough.
Yeah. And so JHS have finally gone, fine, let's make a cheap Tube Screamer. So we're going to see lots of these appear on the market. It's not green, which is kind of weird. But then they've got this 3 Series, which is they're all white. They all look the same. Probably keeps the cost down because they're still made in the US for $99.
Oh.
Same as the whole range that they're doing, which is kind of impressive, I guess.
On the other hand, I don't think it's expensive to build a tube.
No.
Between us.
But they've got the delay and the chorus and all the other pedals in this range. They're all $99, I think.
Okay.
So this is modified to be the JHS mod, the strong mod. So it's probably not for metal guys because it's not just like a clean low end and mid hump thing. It's got some real kind of chunky drive to it. So it's probably aimed more at like a blues player, kind of a heavy rock player who wants that slightly fuzzy thing. It's got the switch that all the other 3 Series have got where it modifies it so it'll be even more low end, I think.
And dear metal players out there, you don't have to care about that. Like every Tube Screamer works for you and for me. That's the good side of it. You don't need to spend like hundreds of dollars on getting like this. You know, those special tube Screamers are for actually using it as an overdrive and not for just tightening your tube.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, most of the time I don't even use a Tube Screamer these days. I just use like an EQ pedal or something. And
yeah, that works as well. I mean, I really like and got used to that EQ curve that the Tube Screamer has. Basically is a low cut, but also some additional attack up there.
Yeah.
But with some amps, that's also too much, and then it can be nice to use an EQ instead.
Yeah.
I just played my Mr. Hector from La Boga last week, and I remember that it just doesn't work with a Tube Screamer. It just sounds really honky.
Yeah.
Just some amps. Also 5150s. Many people do that, but I'm not the biggest fan of 5150s in the first place. And then combined with the Tube Screamer, I just don't like the upper mid. So in that case, it makes sense to use something else. And with an EQ, you're very flexible.
Right. It's funny, I found that I generally don't like 5150 now on the red channel, the gain channel, just at all. But on the crunchy channel, it's more like a Soldano-y kind of thing. And then when you push it, it is better. Because it takes it better, I think. It doesn't then just go... But then there's other amps like...
Also, the modern Fender 5150s, or the EVH 5150s, like a lot of the criticism I had over the years actually went to PV, not to EVH. We also have the EVH, what is it called? Stealth version here.
One of the higher
which actually,
gain
I have to admit, which is actually a pretty good amp. Yeah.
I mean, they were obviously chasing the right idea. I mean, as far as I know, James Brown, the amp designer, has been there most of the time. Like, there's this new one, the Iconic. And so James Brown got kind of recruited back into the Fender EVH to design that. So it's the same guy that designed the original one. So that's really impressive. So however they've done that. Apparently it's got one preamp valve in the new one. I don't know how they've done that. But from what I've heard, it sounds okay. So we'll soon find out. But yeah, like things like makes a dual rectifier definitely needs something more of an angry overdrive, I find. Otherwise otherwise it's new metal all over again.
Yeah, or something that tames the low end. But still I've always been more of a rectifier and still kind of guy than like a big low end, aggressive upper mid range, that combination, slightly scoop kind of guy compared
Yeah.
to this mid tunnel that the 5150 gives you. But yeah, that's
It's a good description. The mid tunnel. Welcome to the mid tunnel. So, moving on, we've only got a couple more articles this week. So, Hum Audio have created a two-channel boutique analog preamp with remote. What the hell is this? That's my question. It looks like a kind of a little handheld unit, so kind of a bit like the Focusrite ISA1, where you can just pick it up and take it to another studio, maybe. Maybe that's the idea. You can have this right next to somebody. But when I had a quick look at this article, it seemed, so it can come with this remote control here, which might be really useful if you're the kind of person that is in a noisy electrical environment. Like, I've had problems in my studio sometimes before we got all the electrics replaced, where it would be quite noisy on the AC lines, or if we ran an XLR cable a long way, that could cause some real problems. But if we put the preamp next to the microphone, that was fine. This combined with something like the Lewitt 1040, which has got that remote control for the microphone, hey, you could have everything right next to the singer. 50,
never move.
50 meters that way. So you could even record like Yoko Ono and actually be able to use it, because I couldn't be anywhere near that kind of noise. But
yeah, let's get even more lazy. Just don't move anymore. Let's everything in reach. Very nice.
Yeah, that's
but
the dream.
The remote really looks nice.
Yeah,
but
the separate all the separate controls, so that can be on your desk. And
it's just weird that they don't make like one unit, like including the preamps. That's a big brick there. Whatever. If it's just two preamps, it's pretty big for what. But move on.
Yeah, so it's got some features. Apparently, it's got Jensen op amps, Pultec style air frequency booster you can have in there. That's a nice kind of thing. Although, of course, with boosts like that, you can't undo it afterwards. Not cheap though. €3,790. Woo.
Oh.
If they want to send me one, great. Otherwise, I'm okay. And last but not least, it's time for Behringer Corner. We almost every week end up with some sort of Behringer news. And this week, we've got the Kohle Expander. So apparently this is the French version of something like a mini Moog. And so I'm guessing that Behringer have done this because it's something a little different. I know that Uli Behringer, the Behringer guy, is a massive keyboard nerd. So if he's got tons of money to just go to his R&D team and say, make me a copy of this, they'll go, yes, sir.
Of course.
And so now you'll be able to buy one of these. I mean, I like the idea of stuff that is slightly not normal as well. Like, yeah, I mean, the Mini Moog is great, but every synth guy's got one. And then you get stuff like the Polyvox or the Kohle that are a little bit weird, and you turn the controls up and it makes noises you didn't expect. I like stuff like that. I mean, if you're going to be a synth guy, because you can get the normal boring stuff in software now. So just, go a little crazy. I mean, the controls on the back are fairly Behringer-ish. There's nothing except there's MIDI and USB and power and some dip switches for MIDI channels, I guess, and one mono audio out, and that's it. And, apparently there's something, the ARP avatar is going to be copied very soon as well, so that's on there too. And so that was Behringer Corner, and that was the news. And as Al has quite rightly put in chat, submit questions now. Submit. So, let's see what we've got, because there was one that I saw earlier. Renanda says, so when are you going to switch to Reaper?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm too old. I started with Cubase in the Atari times. Actually,
wow.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure Reaper is a great alternative, but I'm just too old and stubborn to switch.
To be fair, my second DAW is Cubase. It's solid. It's good. I started on Cubase SX1, and then by the time SX3 was kind of where I capped out with Cubase, and it wasn't doing things that I wanted to do at the time, and things like routing were a bit shit. That's changed now, but at the time, I was looking for alternatives, and I found Reaper. This is 2005, maybe?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been using Reaper a long time. And so it could do things that I wanted, because I had this kind of analog mindset of kind of, why can't I just plug this into this, into this, into this, into this, like a crazy person? And people are looking at me like, why do you want to do that? And I'm like, I don't know. And it worked. And so I stuck with it. And I remember the first album that I produced at 19 years old, maybe. It took me 3 weeks. Where like the stuff I was doing in Cubase, it would take me that long to record 2 songs and produce them. I mean, parts of that I think was because I was young and didn't know what I was doing.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I've definitely found that like the first album I really spent time on took 6 months, and now I could do the same album in 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, well, I would say I started very early, like recording lots and lots and lots of bands, and time was money, so to say. So I was forced to be fast, to be effective. So I couldn't even think of going to another DAW except for Cubase, because I just knew how it worked, and I had no time to even try anything else. And now those days are over. I'm not that stressed anymore, but it used to be like that.
Yeah.
Bands did everything in the studio, and everything was really tight, tight budget, tight schedule.
Yeah.
So you had like edit drums in one day, 8 songs, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
And you really had to know every fucking detail of that program. So yeah, so Cubase worked for me. But like I said, I started on the Atari. Then I even started like hard disk recording with 8 tracks on an Atari Falcon.
Wow.
Cubase Audio, the studio in Darmstadt, where I recorded like dance floor music and stuff. I worked there after school, and that was my first hard disk recording system, which was really cool, 8 tracks. And and so then I moved on to Cubase Audio, and then it was Cubase VST, and then Cubase SX, right?
Yeah.
When you started, and but I'm sure Reaper's great. And these days, I mean, everything's the same. Back in the days, you have to remember, it was Pro Tools used to be, also in Europe, used to be the what do you call it, industry standard. So even when you were using Cubase, everybody was like,
yeah, I remember that very clearly. I found that out because I got into production when I was a teenager. Didn't know anything. I started using Sonar, which was okay. And by the time I went to university to study music production, which now that's completely normal, but back then was weird. But the university that I went to had these multi-million-pound studios, and they had producers. Some of them had like top 10 hits. They were guys who really knew what they were talking about. And so I just signed up. I'm like, I'm doing this. And yeah, right? And it was great, but then I found out after we signed up, it was a Steinberg accredited university. So Cubase was like officially this is what we do. And so I find out within 3 months, it's like everybody's saying I should use Pro Tools. And then I tried it and I was like, I'm going back to Cubase. This is horrible. And so I just had the hard-headed idea that it's like, I'm going to do good work and I don't care what it's in. I'm just going to do good work and people will know who I am. And they didn't. But hey.
Here, I'm still very happy that I didn't have the money back then to get a Pro Tools system, like a hardware DSP system, which used to be something like 20,000 Deutschmarks, which is 10,000 euros these days, which was totally out of reach, of course. So I couldn't afford that, and whatever, 500 euros for Cubase, that was quite a bit better. So I went for Cubase. But these days, I'm so happy because it saved me 10,000s of euros along the way. Pro Tools has always been like the most expensive thing ever, and so I'm happy I saved the money along the way. And these days, where is Pro Tools? I don't really see it, at least not in the rock and metal world in Europe.
It's funny, I was anti-Pro Tools at that point, but I was also anti-UAD for the same reason. It's only with the new Spark thing that I've gone, okay, let's try it. I mean, I did try them when they were new, and they were good. Yeah. It was so expensive. I was like, I ain't paying that. Not as a student and then a
But
new recording guy.
back then, I think that was a game changer. Like the first
Hmm.
1176 and the Pultec plugin, that was like, okay. I
Yeah.
remember like with the UID1 card, that was a lot better than the other stuff
Yeah,
out there,
that's
maybe
fair.
except for Waves. And but these days, of course, there are many great alternatives to UAD, which are way more affordable. Because that's what UID is great, but you know,
Yeah.
if you're starting out now and you need all those plugins, it's incredible how expensive that is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But they're trying to change that with the new
Yeah,
Spark thing,
yeah,
which could be really good.
yeah.
Okay, question from Jamie Slays. You're right, dude. What's an easy, simple thing you can do to improve your guitar tone hugely?
Hello,
Do,
Jamie.
do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
You should. That's such a wide. You start.
My first thing that I would say, if you're just asking me that question, is turn your gain down. Always with guitarists, their gain is on 11, and it's like, I can't get a clear guitar tone. No, turn it down a little and hit harder. And it goes from to. So that's usually my tip. I mean, sometimes you get a guitarist, they come in, their tone is good, but most of the time I find they're fighting too much gain. What do you think?
No, that is correct. These days, it depends on if we are talking about like real world tube amp kind of guys, or if we are talking about
For me, it's
studio
all of
plugin.
them. All of them, I find.
Oh, okay.
I
But
mean,
I would say if we are talking about like home studio setups or something, I would say start with the cab and don't start with the amplifier. That's one important thing. Or start with a good sounding IR that you know that you like. The IR is great. It's much easier to judge everything else. Cabinet microphone combination is what defines your guitar tone the most, especially the high gain world. And if you get that right, you can go backward. You go back to the amp, but that makes it a lot easier to actually judge how much distortion you need, how an amp sounds, how different amp sounds, how they compare. So, and I've seen many guitarists like talking for hours about which strings they play and about the guitars and their amps, and they just play. They don't care about the cabinet. And the cabinet is for me the important part. Once you realize that, it makes everything better and easier.
yes, absolutely. I find now that a lot of guitarists who come in, they have played with real amps in practice rooms. They've not done it so much live, and it changes everything. Because like you can sit in a practice room with an amp kind of loud in front of it and go, I like this, and then the rest of the band comes in and you go, where did my tone go?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's like because you got it dialed in all wrong, or at least you've got it dialed in like a mastered album would sound, and not how an amp should sound. Yeah, it's a tricky thing.
Yeah. Tricky, yeah.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, I think that over the last 30, 40 years, that's what's happened is like you listen to an 80s heavy guitar sound, it's not high gain, it's not heavy. But you listen to the late 80s, early 90s guys, they've turned the gain up a little, turned the mids down a little. Listen to the late 90s guys, more gain, less mids, and so on and so on. Because they've all listened to the last generation of albums and gone, I need more.
Which is cool, I think. I just like to see those transitions from. I even like this phase in the '90s when everybody was going for more gain and less mids is more metal and more brutal, until everything that was sucked out of your guitar tone, like the valve state age, so to say, but kind of romantic. It's like I kind of like those tones in a way.
Yeah, I like them too, but as long as we're honest and say this is kind of bad, but I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite things to do in productions now is to blend some of that with kind of a more punchy tone, get the two together and go ah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I try to teach people as well. Is like get your main guitar tone as good as you can, then try to find out what's missing, and then you can add whatever shitty tone. Can be a fuzz pedal, can be something very scoop like a valve state, can be an HM2 thing with a lot of chainsaw mids around 1K, can be anything that might sound shitty on its own, but it fills the gaps of your main tone if you do it right. And that's how you get beautiful, big sounding guitar tones.
Absolutely. There's quite a few good questions coming in now.
Oh.
So Geeky Kung Fu Social Warrior Friendly Misanthrope. That's quite a name, so I'm just going to say Geeky from now on. It said 2 questions. The first one's not actually a question. It says, you guys have to check out the Sire stuff, like Marcus Miller basses. Yep, okay, they're decent. I've played a Marcus Miller V7. It's okay. It's basically a jazz bass. And here's a question. If your studio would burn down completely, hope that doesn't happen, and the insurance would pay for building everything up again, I mean, how much would be on the check? Basically saying, how much have we paid for our studios? And for me, it's you don't want to know. It's too much.
I can't really tell, but it's a lot. Like, I mean, also like a studio like this has been built over 20 years, more or less.
Yeah.
But
started building my place 10, 12 years ago. Yeah, same thing.
But if you build a proper room, I would say it starts for one room. It starts with maybe 50,000.
Yeah.
Just to get an idea, and then you have several rooms, multiple rooms. It can be done cheaper,
Yeah.
But if you do it right, it depends on what you need. If you need soundproofing, it makes it a lot more expensive.
Yep.
If you want to have a lot of analog gear, it makes it more expensive. If you want things to look nice, it depends. But mastering rooms used to be around 100,000. I remember.
Yeah.
If you want them within whatever 3 dB plus minus 3 dB linear.
Yeah.
And,
if there's anything I've come to realize now, if I was to build everything again, I'd probably have a mixing room half as small as my control room, and I wouldn't need the rest because I would go to other studios to record things like drums. And well, maybe I'd have an amp closet for the cabinets, but I mean, I don't think my live room is the best drum room in the world. So depending on what I'm doing, I would just hire out a place with a great drum room. But that's where I am now. To get to where I am now, I needed to invest in a studio and all the time and everything to prove myself in my own time and that kind of thing. So it's basically, for me, just how much did you spend on it? Everything I could afford for a third of my life. That's basically it. It's everything that didn't have to go on paying people.
Exactly. But you're never going to make it in the studio business if you're not passionate about it.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, it sounds like horrible. You have to put everything to the studio, but you wanted to put everything there.
Yep. Absolutely.
We're passionate about this. So if you're not willing to spend anything you have, to put it into that passion, it's not going to work anyway. Exactly. That also means like how many after hours have we all done? How many nights and weekends have we worked? And all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, and people say you're insane. You should have a day off. It's like, no, this is what I do. Yeah. I don't know if you're like me, but people say, what do you do in your spare time? And I go, I mix. It's funny. For a couple of years in the middle there, I was a chef. I was a fully qualified chef because that's my other passion, right? Is cooking, and it went through. This was 10 plus years ago now. The first studio I had went bankrupt, and it was all a big nightmare. And I went, right, I'm going into cooking, and I got into a lot of trouble because I would come home from cooking, and I would be mixing a friend's album until crazy times in the morning, and always be tired the next day. And they were saying, like, have you got a drinking problem or a drug problem or something? It's like, no, I mix. And so after a while, I realized it's like, this is really what I should be doing. So I got back into it because, like you say, it's that crazy passion of this is what I do. And I get better because this is what I do. And I do it all the time. And I try and learn all the time because I enjoy it because it's fun.
Yeah, for me, there has never been an alternative. I've been doing this my entire adult life, more or less. I've been studying musicology as well, but parallel, I was already doing the studio, and so I've never done anything. What do you call this? Except for recording other people, except for trying to make rock and metal albums sound great.
Yeah.
And
Well, here's the question that solidified it for me, because someone asked me this a long time ago, was if you won the lottery, if you were a millionaire tomorrow, what would you do?
for me now,
What would you do?
I'm happy to say I wouldn't change that much.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some ideas that I could where I could invest the money and stuff, and maybe I would do a holiday that I otherwise would blah. But
Yeah.
there are so many. I have so many cool projects at the moment.
Yeah.
That even that holiday would have to wait, for whenever there's time. But what I'm saying is that, and that's what I'm trying to teach my kids as well, is that if you find something that really drives you, and you can make that turn that into a living, that's the best thing that can happen to you. So instead of, and you should be passionate about your work, and that's it. And even if that means you have to work twice as much, or even if that means you have certain disadvantages here and there, it still pays out if you wake up in the morning and feel like, hey, I got a cool project. I got a cool, something cool that I got to do today.
That's it. And the answer is exactly the same for me. Is like, I might buy some nicer equipment. I might upgrade the studio a little. I'm not retiring.
No.
I'm just going to do more. Bigger, better, more interesting stuff. And that's the thing, is most people that I know, if you said, well, you won the lottery, the first thing they'd say is, I'm going to retire and quit my job. And it's like, nope, not me. Because this is what I like to do.
Exactly.
But yeah. So let's have a look. There were a couple of other questions. I don't know how much time you've got. I don't want to keep you all night because it's getting a little late. But let's have there were a couple more that I saw. Something about hot tubs. Let's ignore that one. What's your favorite bass rig for recording?
For recording,
generally.
The most important thing is that you have a great bass, some new strings that go dangle, 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 dangle.
Yes.
You got that, and there are a lot of different tools, a lot of different rigs that will all sound great. I love anything Ampeg. I love the Sense Amp stuff. There's also the Sense Amp Tech 21 Ampeg pedal.
Oh yeah, the VT21.
That one, great pedal. I love the dark glass stuff. I think the most popular video on my YouTube channel is the one about the Mammoth DSP plugin from the Mammoth plugin from Aurora DSP.
Yeah, yes.
Which is a fantastic plugin, also great. And sometimes I use Guitar Gear for bass distortion. So there's a lot of stuff that works. And I just did a session like 2 weeks ago where I recorded one of those dark glass amps into a Coffee custom cab 6x12 cabinet with a U87 and a 57, and that also sounded great. So I like even using real cabs and real mics. But again, the best tip for bass recording, heavy rock or metal, is go back to the source and make sure your bass goes ding, 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 ding. That's the most important part.
Yeah, very, very, very fresh strings.
Yeah.
I mean, how long do you let strings go on? Are you one of those 20 minutes guys?
No, not at all. No. So it's usually like if you record bass for 1 or 2 days for production, I just need one set of strings. That's okay. Depends on which strings you buy also. Like I always recommend those cheap Warwick Red Label bass strings, the steel ones, not the nickel ones.
Yeah.
Because they sound fantastic. They just don't last that long.
No,
but they
it's
only
true.
only cost you 10 euros. But if you pay 50 euros, you get Daddario, what are they called? Pure Steel or something. They will last longer. Pro Steel, right.
Those are the
they
ones.
will last longer, but not 5 times as long. So it depends.
Yeah, they're decent.
But I'm not like I've heard that on URM sometimes. People go, after every second riff, I need to change the strings.
It's like, nah. Although I have to change my bass strings more often than some people because I have very acidic sweat.
Okay.
But like when I was playing wedding shows, like no one cares at a wedding show. But
ding, 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 ding,
yeah,
anyway, right?
I know, no one cares. But every 2 shows I would have to change my strings. Because otherwise I would be, without thinking, I would be digging in so hard I would be blistering my fingers.
Okay. Oh,
to try,
wow.
because I'm used to a very kind of bright tone,
Yeah.
and if it's not there, I push harder to get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you look down after a 3-hour show and there's blood, you're like, ah.
That's metal.
Oh yeah, man. But yeah, I've got a couple of really nice basses in here, which I'd be interested to show the chat. But that's for another time because this is not a bass video specifically. And last one, HM2 sound is great for blended tones. How do you guys have any tips on getting a great HM2 tone on its own? Like, what kind of amp, speaker, cab, whatever would you run? I mean, is there such thing as a great HM2 tone on its own?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've done albums just like HM2 only albums, or HM2 wish albums. I mean, I build it, but I would just recommend getting this.
The Grindstein, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Shameless plug. I was gonna say I've got one, the Jupiter Effects Death Saw, which is basically an HM2 with all the controls on full, because that's the only way to use them.
not really.
I know.
But no, I think the Grindstein for me was, that's why I built it, was the perfect compromise. Like, from coming from having done a lot of HM2 tones or HM2 productions in the studio, I wanted to create something that actually works, because I've seen too many guitarists come here go like, because I have a few HM2s, and like, can I play this? I said like, yeah, but it sounds like shit, you know.
Yeah.
So people like the idea of the HM2, but they don't really like how the HM2 sounds. And that's how we came up with Grindstein, which
With the
sounds
blend,
more
yeah.
modern, tighter, and blah blah blah. So that's what I would recommend. In general, I feel ironically that the HM2 works pretty well with active pickups. That's also something.
Oh, okay.
Even if people weren't using active pickups back in the 90s, like Entomb.
Yeah, it's a good shout. What you want is to run it into a Marshall valve state with the mids on 0 into the worst cabinet you can find with the microphone 20 feet away. And then that's it. That's how you get that sound. And then mix it with all the treble on 12 and all the bass on 12 and the mids on 0. Bury the vocals.
Please.
Bury the drums.
No.
Yeah. Or just everything at the sides and nothing in the middle. It's funny. Recently I was working with one of the guys from Cradle of Filth, and just to get up to speed, I listened to some of the old Cradle of Filth stuff, and it sounded so bad. And it's like, guys, how, what? And they got famous because the songs were there. But you listen back to it now and you go, what were they doing?
I didn't even like it that much back then, to be honest, but that might be just me.
No, but it's kind of rose tinted glasses, isn't it? That a lot of people remember it much more fondly than it
Of course.
was.
I mean, they were together with Dimmu Borgir. They were the first two like bands that took black metal to mainstream. So I have a lot of respect for Cradle of Filth. And
it's funny. Our friend Scott from Chernobyl Studios, he interviewed the drummer Nick Barker, who was in Dimmu for a while, and apparently they were really angry with him because he made it sound too good, like too pop, as they called it. It's like, no, it just sounds good. So funny. But yeah, there you go. I mean, and standards have changed so much now that if it doesn't sound great, yeah, you're not getting very far. And we did actually just one last thing. Someone asked something about the Kohle audio cult, which I'm just going to give a shameless plug because that's your new thing that's on the horizon and growing. Is it being incorporated into Pro Mix Academy is the question, or do you have your own platform coming?
That will be my own platform. I mean, I'm doing this together with Warren Ewart, so it's the same people running the thing, the background more or less. But it will be a separate platform, kind of like Produce Like a Pro, but for the heavier shit, for the metal stuff. Yeah. And it will be built around me. And we're preparing this right now, and we're doing a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of courses. A lot of cool people are involved, and I will also be traveling around the world to do a lot of cool things
Mm.
soon. And took us more time than expected, but I think we're in a few months we will be ready, and
And it
I
will
hope
be
you guys will
awesome.
join us.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody keep an eye out for the Kohle Audio Cult. Join if you haven't done already. I'm sure one of our mods will put a link in the chat to that there. But that is a perfect time to conclude tonight's podcast. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks Kristian for coming on and guesting this week. And yeah, join the Kohle Audio Cult. Yes. And we will see you same time next week, 8 p.m. Thursday for the Hot Poll podcast. See you later. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hot Pole Studios. See you there.